Games, board games. I might be talking about auction games, but I'm not gonna shout. If you're making an auction, if you're making an in-game auction with a somewhat constrained denomination, at what point is it constrained enough? Something where you can think, that's what stuff they've got, and maybe it's something you'll think about, but it's not too annoying and it doesn't make you shout. Board game auctions, constrained denominations, board game auctions, it's what I'm talking about. Board game auctions, I'm not going to shout. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, whatever it is, wherever you are. 10 a.m. is UK time for Bessie Beats and Board Game Bladder. Hello, Yoda, it is super lovely to see you. Thank you for joining this morning. And as I've just explained in a very badly improvised song, constrained bidding. When does it get interesting? When does it get annoying? So, in my latest game that I'm submitting to Board Game Geek, a game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer, there's just to give a very quick overview of this. The game is first divided into a series of blind sealed bid auctions where everyone bids an amount and then it's revealed how much you want to become the auctioneer. And the reason you might want to become the auctioneer is because the auctioneer gets the winning bid of the second auction. Now, the second auction is English auction, and then the auctioneer has to say, okay, do I hear 7 for this? Great. Do I hear 8? Do I hear 9? Do I hear 10? And ramps it up and gets everyone excited. If there's ever a tie on who shouts first, the auctioneer is the person who decides. So there's a smidgen of real timeness in there. But whatever the winning bid is for the second auction will be for one piece of currency worth some amount plus some number of cubes. And at the end of the game, the cubes are the main way you get points. You also get 1 point for every free currency that you have. And the currency comes in cards. The cards might say, this is where we get to the topic of the conversation, because currently they say 1, 2, 4, 5, and 7. So you'll notice that 3 and 6 are missing just to make it that little bit interesting. And people have said, yes, I think about it. There was a point when I wanted to bid 19, but actually I had to bid 20, or more likely there was a point when I wanted to bid 10, but actually I had to bid 11 or 12. And in my mind, I'm thinking, is the currency is going to get constrained naturally because the currency is on the cards and you can't make change with the bank because it would be impossible to let people make as much change as they want. And so I thought in the early days of this game, why not make it a feature rather than a bug? And the question is, given that it's a feature, is there enough constraint? And that's the topic of today's conversation. And my current thoughts are I'm going to move the currency to going 1, 2, 2, 6, 7. So there will still be 5 pieces of currency, but then that allows you to bid 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, making up with the smaller things, or 6 or 7. So you can bid anything. You could also go up to 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, or up to 18. Like, you could bid, in theory, any number up to 18 at the start, but as soon as you start using some of your cards, you're going to feel constrained, and you will feel it in your first game. It's not just going to be a side thing, because if it's going to be there, I feel like it should really be there, and that's my thoughts. And I'm going to test that tonight. But first of all, let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. yesterday, after streaming, we went to the beach. We made a video for a mutual friend, the 6 of us working together to make a birthday video for a friend whose birthday it is today, which was a lovely occasion. Wandered around a tiny Isle of Arran in Scotland. I'm currently now in Glasgow. I got here late last night for lunch slash we had brunch, like a big cooked breakfast, and then for an early dinner we had pizza, and I decided to gorge myself when I arrived in Glasgow and had a small fish supper as well. But yeah, recent highlights, getting here, being with people, saying goodbye, that was what was really on my mind. And let's talk about brilliant thing was a little thing which is brilliant. I'm going to say, let's talk about limitations. All too often, we talk about limitations being an annoying thing. Limitations not only do they breed creativity, as Mark Rosewater said, but in a game, they can guide us. Like if you've got constrained bidding and you can't, and you know, okay, clearly this 1 and the 2 and the 2 are more valuable. Maybe I'll start off with a bid of 5, like because I've got a clear set of currency, it's going to guide me somewhat. Also, limitations, having a minimum value, saying, okay, this is how much this is how much I can sell this for, then I know this is worth at least this much. And in an auction game, all too often, it's like, how much is this worth? Well, I've got money. Money is worth nothing at the end of the game. And then my cubes are worth something at the end of the game. So how much are they worth? I just do not know. And so, yes, good morning, Josie. It is lovely to see you. And I 100% agree with this. Like in life, you've got limitations. You can outgrow them. You can say, okay, this is what I've got to work with. I'm only using cards. And with my cards, what else can I do? Okay, what else will people actually be able to have? I mean, it's because I'm using cards that I'm going towards a constrained bidding system. And if I was not using cards, if I had as many tokens as I wanted, the games would be very different. Like, I don't know if this is sometimes those limitations aren't necessarily great. I mean, for sure, a game about cute comical creatures and trying to identify them after some mixed noises, when it gets, I'm going to say when, I'm going to be hopeful, when it gets taken over by a bigger publisher, I'm hoping they do little point tokens as well. That would be nice to have little cardboard tokens rather than needing to use the cards to be multifunctional, both the points and that thing. But at the same time, I think that designing games within limitations has made me more creative in a sense. But back to the notion of auctions, by telling you, okay, this cubes can be traded for 1 money, and this auction gives you a card worth 2 money and also 3 cubes. Well, it's worth at least 5. And so that means that everyone should be bidding at least 5. And really, they should be bidding around 3. If I say, well, free money is worth 1 point, then each cube is worth at least 1 point. If you've got multiple of one color, then it's worth more. I'm not going to get into the exact rules of the game, but it's like, then you think, okay, well, this gives me 2 money, so whatever I bid, I can use that, and it's giving me 3 cubes, which is 3 points, and so I could bid 11, and I'm still getting a return, plus it's giving me flexibility. And so in your mind, it might be, and it's this guidance, because limitations give you guidance. Limitations give you something to say, hey, try this, it's okay. It's like being on rails, and being on rails, whilst it might sound terrible, I mean, you can still switch between rails. You can have bumper rails, and then they keep you from going too far, from wrecking your entire game. And as much as I've got respect for splotter games where it's all about, well, if you can't lose the game on the first turn, what's the point of getting the first turn? And I have respect for that, but at the same time, I think that when I saw, in the worst versions of my game that were played, I mean, it's been rough. It was when people had no idea, and then everyone in the group was just underbidding in turn one, and then so I need guidance. I need to remind people of things, give people limitations and guidance can be brilliant. So as always, I encourage you all to comment, ask questions, fun, like, follow, and this is going to be I'm at home. I don't need to necessarily go anywhere. When I say I'm at home, I don't need to. I'm in a place where I'm sleeping. It's not like this is an actual on the road show. So if you've got any comments or questions, then please do say. Otherwise, I'm going to share. Wait, this window, did that work? Let me squeeze it together. Great. So this is a game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer. So that's the game name. And it's going to be released at UK Games Expo. It's for 3 to 6 players. Now, honestly, I think that 4 to 6, like a lot of these games, there's a bit more group dependency on the lower end and the higher end. I think that, and I'm just going to go through and talk about what I think of all these things. Oh, Stream Elements tells me to wriggle and jiggle. Let me do a wee bit of that. What does it play best at? Do you mean what player count? I still haven't decided. I've watched it at all the player counts, 3 to 6. Look, it's an auction game, and one person is going to be the auctioneer. So that because you're winning an auction to become the auctioneer, 3 is the bare minimum that it could work at. Because once one person's out, then it's down to these 2 people to compete and then go 5, 6, 5, 6. Like if it was just 2 people, there'd be no way to make it work. I think 3 people, everyone you need to be a bit more, okay, what do these 2 people think? You need to be a bit more thinking about each other, a bit more mindful of the limited money. I think 4 players I slightly prefer, and personally, I'm going to say that this is my first game that I've still never actually won at after playing it way more than 10 times. So I'm really enjoying it. I love auctions because they're so interactive. I will say that 6 player, I like the chaos of more players. I find that it says card game, which it absolutely is. It says real time, and as you can see, there's still bits for me to fill in before I submit this. And I'm not sure if it really counts as real time. The reason I put in real time is because of the real time auctions. Because as I said, first you've got the sealed bid auctions, and it says over there where everyone's bidding to become the auctioneer. And then when you are the auctioneer, well, if 2 people both want to bid 5, it's just the first player to say 5. And obviously with more players, it's more likely that you'll get that competition. And if I want to bid 5, someone else might be likely to bid 5. So with more players, there's a bit more chaos, there's a bit more urgency, there's a bit more, okay, I want to be the first to get in there. And in a sense, with the game, every turn, 2 people can sort of win, because the auctioneer, ideally, they bid an amount of money that is less than the winning bid. So they get something, they get some winning bid. And secondly, the person who wins the bid should bid ideally low enough that they're winning some points. So whether you're winning with points or winning with money, that then gives you more flexibility later on to bid. 2 people are winning. And with the higher player counts, I will say that there can be a little bit more disappointment. It's like, oh, I didn't get to win that auction. Oh, I didn't get to win that auction. And so that can be a bit sad. My instinct, honestly, is that 5 players is possibly the ideal. I think 5 players might be the ideal. As I say, more players, more chaos. Fewer players, more it's dependent on these particular players. it might even be 6 players is my favorite. I mean, it could have gone up to 6. I mean, 7. The reason it doesn't go up to 7 is purely because of card count. And I'm not sure, yeah, because you need to start off with like 5 cards of currency each, and then you need to have enough auctions so that everyone wins a good number of the auctions. So that, I mean, if there were only 7 as a hypothetical, then it would be like, well, if you win 2 auctions, then someone else is going to be very disappointed. Like, there need to be enough so that everyone on average wins a couple of them. And like 3, I think, is what I'm aiming for. And there's still that, oh my gosh, I've got to win my quota, otherwise I won't win the game. But yeah, I think the more players, the longer it takes. Like, there's more auctions because you need more auctions to make it feel satisfying for more players. Yeah. But yeah, the reason it only goes up to 6 is purely because of what I could fit into one deck. Minimum age 10. Honestly, there's nothing family unfriendly about it. It was just, that's the age at which I expect people to be able to calculate some things. I could put 13, like, just so it's not a toy, but 10 seems reasonable. I mean, it's only cards. It's not exactly any components that I have a choking hazard or anything there. Minimum time, I mean, again, with more players, there's more auctions going on. Sealed bid, I already mentioned. So there's no turn orders as such, except the turn order of who becomes the auctioneer. And so you're auctioning for the turn to become the auctioneer. Like, it could just go around, everyone gets a turn of being the auctioneer. And it has been suggested multiple times as a family game. But that, how much do I bid? And all of this money goes out the game, and I might make a terrible move. That bite is part of the game. Constrained bidding is what I am going to talk about, and obviously it's designed by me, and it's exactly the same size as all the Bezzy bargain bags, except you need your own cubes, and it's definitely going to be released at UK Games Expo. So let me get more into the constrained bidding. And what was my thoughts, and what am I going to think about? So, as I mentioned at the start of the game, like, I love high society, right? And looking at constrained bidding, I mean, you've got games where you've got limit. I mean, Ra is the best scenario of constrained bidding because you've got only 3 things. Each auction can only use 1 of your bidding tiles, and if you want to bid, if you think that something's worth 12, but your bidding tiles are 2, 10, and 20, I can't remember what to go up to, so forgive me if this isn't a realistic example. Well, you either have to underbid and hope that no one outbids you, or you have to massively overbid. And also, Ra, there's an element of adding more stuff to the auction until it's worth equal to 1 of what you have. Now, high society, it's got an interesting thing of constrained bidding where it keeps going round, but whatever you put down, you can only add to it. You can't pick up your cards. So if you put down a 7 and you make up 7 with smaller cards, where you can't use one of those smaller cards to then go up to 8 because you've already put them down. And so you need to think, there's an extra sense of you need to be correct with this exact bid. And this isn't a mechanism that Alan and I have talked about yet, but I think the key thing is that it adds a bit of bite, it adds a bit of pressure. It's almost like a once-around auction where you have that sense of, what's the exact number? I need to get it right now. But there is still the possibility to come back in and overbid if you really want to. Now, constrained bidding, sometimes it's done deliberately, and I have no way of, I don't know the design of any of these games. I'm not best friends with any of these designers, but in my game, the reason it came about is, as I said, because of the card limitations and making it a feature rather than a bug. So originally I was thinking, should it just be like, should it just go 1, 2, 4, 8? Because with binary numbers, you can still bid any number you want, but that feels a bit too much. Like originally it was like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then very quickly chopped out the 3 just to see how does this work? Is it work fine? And then it was like, okay, well, everyone's got the 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, so there's no 3. But then that was a bit weird. People are like, whoa, you're missing one number? And if you miss one number, then it feels weird. If you miss two numbers, then it's a pattern. And so if you go 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, well, you've still got the opportunity to bid anything. And now it becomes, okay, I'm aware of this. Just checking what I'm wearing. Yes, I'm going to take this off. It is actually with the laptop on my thing. I wasn't sure if I was wearing anything underneath. And now I'm a bit too chilly. But anyway, so then in my mind, I'm thinking, is it constrained enough? What could be a better constraint? Would it be better if it was 1, 2, 3, skip the 4 and 5, and then go 6, 7? I want people to have about 5 things to bid with. That gives enough granularity, 5 cards, that they can bid differing amounts. The turn order sometimes comes into play. So the person who was the previous auctioneer is last in the turn order priority to become the next auctioneer. Why was it specifically number 3? That's a really good number. Good question, sorry. I think the reason it was, I didn't analyze it at the time, but I felt like it was something where people probably won't miss it. I mean, it's something where, yeah, it was I mean, calling it random probably undermines the amount of, what's the word I'm looking for, intuition that I've built up at this point. But I definitely felt like 3 would be the one that's not missed, and going 3 and 6, then that keeps the 3s are still outside and there's a bit of a pattern to there. And it's like, okay, you need a 1, you need a 2, because if you don't have a 2, there's no way you can bid 2. But then the 3 is the first one that you can miss. And because, 3 can be made up of 1 and 2. And then you need a 4 to be able to bid 4. And you could, in theory, skip the 5. As I just said, you could go binary. You could go 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, and you can suddenly bid any number. But if I'm thinking, okay, how much is a thing typically worth? I want the bid to be at least 7. I want the bids to be like 7 typically, and then be like, yeah, we can bid a good number. And yeah, I think 3, it wasn't considered that much, but it was just the first possibility. And but if I were to remove the things in the middle, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, then that makes it more awkward than going, or if I were to go 1, 2. Well, my first thought was 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, because you can still bid 5 and technically 6, and then you can still make all the numbers. But if I want it to be even more awkward, losing the 3 again, that's 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Because suddenly you can't make 4. That's a number that you cannot make. And by having something excluded, that means that you say, well, we are bidding 5. 5 is the number. You have to start with 5. And then I'm thinking, well, why not double up with something? 1, 2, 2, 6, and 7. What that does for the game is now people can see the value of these low numbers. So you've got the 1s and the 2s, and sure, they might only be worth 1 or 2 money, but they've also got this intangible value of adding flexibility. I mean, if I bid 5 and then I lose all of these, and suddenly all I can go is 6 and 7 and 13, plus whatever the new money that I got was. Maybe I'm bidding 4, and it does also push people at the start to maybe bid just 1 and 2, unless someone's really pushing the boats out and going 4. And then everyone else for the actual auction for the cubes is hopefully going for the 6 and the 7. And it's almost constraining people to put them down these bumper lanes because, again, if people don't, if I want there to be sort of two families of, okay, I bid less for this stuff, I bid more for this stuff. But ultimately, all of this, it's not about maths. It's not about what's the numbers that you're able to make. It's about having things missing. It's about having that emotional reaction to what's missing. It's about, whoa, I want to do this, but I can't. How much does that pain you? How much does that tickle you? How much does it amuse you? And for sure, if it was 11177 as an extreme example, I mean, then you can only bid 3 or 7. You can't bid 4, 5, 6. There's not enough granularity for a nice English auction. I mean, for an English auction, it's almost pushing you in the opposite direction because constrained bidding, you want discrete granularity, you want big jumps. But English auction, you want to think, I'm going to bid 5, and that's the number, and I'm stopping there. And so I do think that by trying to make an English auction game, there's a reason why there's not that many. I mean, there's a reason why if I go to if I go to the mechanics of Board Game Geek and look at English auctions, there are literally only 6 games listed. There's a reason why there are so few, and I honestly think it's because they're kind of hard to make. They're chaotic. They are incredibly player dependent. And if we go by number ratings, so Monopoly, Modern Art, and if we discount the alternate versions of Monopoly, there's basically 5 different games with proper English auctions, and I think Pixel Legends was a mistake. So you can't always trust what's going on there. Anyway, I think there's actually only like 3. And the reason that this is not a common thing is because just removing one person from the auction, and like Monopoly doesn't even specify what kind of auction it really is. So it's a big task. Saying how much it's going to be is like having that pure freedom, having that real-time element in an auction game. It's slightly unnerving because you need to decide, okay, who was first? And you need, it kind of goes against the thoughtfulness of an auction game to then bring in that, okay, boom, I picked that number just before you. But it does have that at the heart, that chaos. That's, I think, people will expect. And it's getting the balance of the granularity versus the missing numbers. And I know I've really just blathered a bunch, but hopefully this has been vaguely interesting. I feel like I should stop at this point, but my question of the day, here's a little question before we go on our way. My question of the day is, have you ever been in England? And if you live in England, or if you're currently in England, what's the closest, like, how far along the edges have you been? That's what I'm asking. Yeah, so how far along, like talking about English auctions? I've not been all the way to Cornwall. I'd like to go there. I did go to Devon during COVID. Um, like in 2021, we rented a big mansion. Like there were a whole bunch of us, like mutual friends. We all kind of isolated, made properly for like 2 weeks before, and then all went to this place for a very long weekend, getting a great deal because obviously it was empty otherwise. And went to the dinosaur beach. It was amazing. I've been there. I've been to the bottom, to the Isle of Wight. I've been to the um yeah, Brighton and Kent, and I've travelled to Scotland, so I've kind of gone through that area, and I've gone to Wales, so I've gone through that area, but I've never really gone to the east coast, like the northeast coast. Yeah. What are the edges that you've been to? Have you been around Cornwall? Do you live in England? Have you been to England? I'm curious. Um, are we talking England or English Isles or UK? No, I'm talking if I say if I meant UK, I would say UK. I'm not one of these people. Like I was born in Glasgow. If I was talking about UK, I would say UK. I'm not going to say England when I mean UK. For goodness sake. I guess I did say Isle of Wight, so I was kind of including the islands. No, I mentioned Wales and Scotland because I've been up that way. So if I've been to Wales, like I must have passed through the left bit of England. That's what I'm saying. It's like saying, I've been to France and I've driven to France. So clearly I've been to the bottom of England. I mean, that was the logic that I was following. Does that make sense? Um, so yeah, I've been, um, yeah, I'm sorry. Oh, anyway, I hope that's so. Yes, have you been to Cornwall? Let's go with that. I've never been to Cornwall. The closest I've been is Devon. So, have you been to Cornwall? And if not, where's the closest you've been? Um, either, yeah, that's so. My question of the day to you. Over to you. What are you up to? You can share a button if you want to. Other than arguing about the relevance of the other um, British territories, like when talking about England, what are you up to today? Is there something that you want to do, something that you need to do? Please share. I promise that I care. Typically Monday's a day off for me, and I I mean, I am using the opportunity of meeting someone to do some playtesting. So I met someone who was super lovely over the weekend and lives in Glasgow. I decided to spend one extra day here because sadly, my regular Tuesdays plans are not happening. So my friend's not coming over, and in the evening, not getting anyone over to playtest. So I have no reason to be there on Tuesday. So I'm meeting up with my new friend. We're going to hang out. I'm going to meet her boyfriend, and together we will play games. We will be playing tonight a game about auctioning cubes after winning an auction to become the auctioneer. And I will be testing out a 1, 2, 2, 6, and 7. We'll see how that goes. Is it too constrained? It all depends on the emotional way that it pans out. We'll also probably be playing a few levels of Questable and seeing how that goes. I'm looking forward to it, and we'll also probably be chatting a lot. We'll have some fish supper today. I've got a fairly relaxed day, not doing much. And talking about the question of the day, Josie says, I've been to the most easterly point to the most westerly point in one day. Wow. So the most westerly point is the most westerly point is like the tip of Cornwall with the White Cliffs. Is that right? Been to Cornwall, also done the Isle of Man and Jersey and Guernsey. Been to Scotland, but not the most northern point. But like if you've been to Scotland, that means that you've gone through the tip of England, because I mean that border isn't like that long. So yeah, anyway. So yeah, that's quite cool. And I guess you've been to the bottom, so you've seen a lot of England. Good on you. What are you up to today? Recap and wrap up before we finish up. To recap and wrap up, I like the idea of constrained bids. I think that it's important that if something is in a game, then you make it work to become a constraint, to become a feature rather than a bug. I think that constraints and limitations can be wonderful in guiding you, in providing you with limitations. When creating creative things like making a game, they can force you down certain paths, but also when playing a game, they can change the way you behave and they can force interesting decisions upon you. They can force creativity within your game playing. I do have to make a LARP by the weekend. So yeah, that's the thing that I will be doing this week. But anyway, if you want to check me out, I'm Stuff by Bez in all of the places. Tomorrow I'm going to do my Ask Me Anything, where I answer all the questions that have been asked on Twitter to the best of my abilities. I want to say thank you very much to everyone, and please share and spread the word. And Josie says, I love the UK. I think we have some amazing changing scenery for such a small landmass. Also, I try not to fly as an ethical decision. Great on you. I do agree with a previous guest. Oh, what's their name? I can't remember. But Rob Ron, this is terrible. But a previous guest was saying that ideally these ethical decisions should just be also the most financially best decisions. Like we should ideally be taxing petroleum at its source and extraction of oil and giving that money back to indigenous populations so that we can so that people don't think, oh, I'll do that, I can afford it, so that everyone's kind of forced into. But yeah, you're right, we do have some amazing scenery and it's lovely to go around. And yeah, if you expand, I think within England, I mean, it changes somewhat, but if you add Scotland, I mean, Scotland is so different. And then, yeah, I don't think I've explored England quite enough. I've been to less, like just the small markets, going to St. Ives, like going like by the river. Although that decision then penalises the poor. Yeah, but it's also, yeah, the whole. But then we get into the question of should you be flying at all? And yeah, I don't know. And the rich could still afford to fly. I think it needs to be done on a ration basis. That's an interesting idea, that there's a ration per person of how much oil you consume or something like that. Yeah. But then if it was done that way, all the world's governments would give. Yeah, I totally get that. But all the world's governments would have to get behind on that. But I do like that idea. Like if you were the ultimate dictator of the world, I would be behind that idea. But yeah, going back to the auction and stuff, I think my current thinking is that by having a number that's either impossible or painful to bid, that's when you start to really feel the constrained auctions. I have a sense that currently the constrained auctions are just not constrained enough, that the constrained bidding is just not constrained enough. And I feel like the vital moment is when with 1 to 2, 6, 7, you can still bid 5, but it's super painful. You lose all your small currency. With 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, again, you cannot bid 5. No, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. No, you can bid 5. What am I talking about? But it's slightly less. 1, 2, 5. Yeah, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7. Then you cannot bid 4. And then that would be kind of interesting. So yeah, if 1, 2, 2, 6, 7 is too much, I could go back to 1, 2, 3, 6, 7. But yeah, that's the one decision that I have to make mechanically. Other than that, it's just putting a bunch of graphics together. And yeah, I could do that in a day. And then as long as I do it 3 weeks before it needs to be printed, so sometime next month, it's all good. I'm excited to play it. And I'm excited to get it out for UK Games Expo. And the only thing left for me to say is, as always, Lots of love and bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Lots of love and bye, bye, everyone. Bye, 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 bye.